everyone, welcome back to the SG Wristwatcher channel. Today I'm here to talk about my latest acquisition, the Christopher Watt 12, and compare whether it's better than the Omega Aqua Terra 38.5mm. So to quickly introduce, this Christopher Watt is 36mm and it's the titanium version with the chronometer movement, and which has been discontinued. And this is the Omega Aqua Terra 38.5mm. It's an older version. So this Omega, the latest Omegas Aqua Terras retail for about 9,600 Singapore dollars. This one is of course not that version, but it's just to give you a sense. And whereas this one sold for 2,650 Singapore dollars. Pre-owned, I picked this one up for 3,500 Singapore dollars, but the latest versions will be about $5,000. Whereas this one I picked up the pre-owned for $1,200. So the Omega, the reason I'm comparing them is because these two represents a very similar kind of watches. They are go anywhere, do anything watches that can work in sporty or dressy situations. And let's also talk about the fact that both of them use this very similar kind of shark teeth indices, and both have 100 meters of water resistance. Okay, so the Omega comes in at 38.5mm, but it wears a bit more like 37mm thanks to this crown guard over here, which makes the watch a bit thicker when you measure it, but when you look at it, it's a little bit more like a 37mm. The case profile on the side is quite simple. It's kind of slab-sided, but from the downside you can see that it has this kind of chamfers that are called lyre lugs, which are Omega's trademark. Whereas for the Christopher Watt, you can see that it's called the 12 because there's actually 12 sides which are polished, and it contrasts with the brush edges. And the edges of the case as well are chamfered, which gives it quite a refined look. And as well, you can see that the crown guards on both sides are screwed in. The design of the Christopher Watt 12 is actually done by the same designer who did the Chamfered Antarctic, which is quite a high horology sports watch, and something that I enjoyed a lot. Okay, so the main thing I wanted to compare for these two watches was actually the thickness. So the Omega comes in at 13mm thick, which is not crazy thick, but it's still quite hefty for a non-diver. It's 150 meter water resistant, but if you compare it to the Christopher Watt, which is 9mm, the 4mm difference is actually quite significant and quite noticeable, especially on the wrist. So and we'll go to the main difference for that, which is later, which is talking about the thickness of their respective calibers. One thing to note is that when I first handled the Patek Nautilus and the AP Royal Oak Jumbo, the thing I noticed about them was how thin they were. They were about 8 to 9mm thick. So that's something I thought was really elegant. You don't really see that in the pictures, but once you've seen them in person, you notice that the slimness gives those watches a refinement that you don't notice in pictures. So let's talk about the dials. So for the Omega, they have this kind of shark teeth indices, which came from their Seamaster heritage. It is polished at the top, and it has lume, and they are actually very 3D trapezoidal, and they are well polished on the edges. So it's actually quite a refined dial and indices that they have. The Christopher Watt also has very similar looking ones, but they are slightly wider. They are not as pointed. They are chamfered as well, but not quite to the same level of polishing and refinement as the Seamaster. Okay, in terms of the hands, both have their hands are quite different. I would say that for the Seamaster, they have a little bit of loom on the hour hand and on the tip of the minute hand, whereas I think the Christopher Watt's hands are much more legible, especially in the dark, because they have a lot more loom on the hour hand and on the full length of the minute hand. I wish that Omega actually put some loom on the full length of the minute hand, then that would make it much more useful as a sports watch, especially in the dark, and as a Garda watch. The Omega comes with a really nice Omega applied logo and indices, and it comes with this thick deck pattern, this striping that is supposed to remind us of a boat of the deck of a ship or a yacht or a sailboat. Meanwhile, the Christopher Watt has a really nice dial. It's you can see that it's 3D pattern that looks like the Swiss and English flags, which is their logo. So it's a repeating and 3D motif that they've stamped, and it looks really good and even up close. And the other thing about the Christopher Watt is that it has this fuming effect or smoke effect, where the center is brighter and the edges are darker, and that's part of the reason why it costs more than the regular steel version. So this one costs about almost $1,000 more than the steel counterpart, because of it uses titanium instead of steel. It has a chronometer movement which is more accurate and is 1mm slimmer, and it also has this fume dial. So those are the main differences, and it's why I wanted to get the titanium one. So let's talk about the movement now. So for the Omega, it's where it really shines ahead of the Christopher Watt. You can have a look at the movement. Let's see, can we pick it up? Yeah, so it has a twin barrel architecture, meaning that it delivers its power reserve more smoothly than a single barrel, and there will be higher accuracy throughout the whole power reserve range. It has 60 hours of power reserve, and is chronometer certified, and it has a silicon balance spring, which makes it more magnetic resistant. And one neat feature of this older caliber 8500, which is actually superior to the newer 38mm Aqua Terras, is that it has a jump hour, which the newer Aqua Terras don't have. So in some ways I feel that I like this older Aqua Terra more than the newer ones. So the jump hour mechanism is useful, especially when if you're traveling between time zones. You don't have to reset the hour and minute hand. Sorry, you don't have to reset the minute hand. Okay, now we go on to the Christopher Watt. It uses the Sellita SW300, which is it looks pretty good. It has a custom rotor. None of the fancy technology. It's pretty old technology, this 2892, but it is really slim. So this caliber is 3.6mm. If we compare to Omega's 8500 caliber, it's 5.5mm. So that's 2mm, which kind of accounts for some of the reasons why this watch is able to be 4mm slimmer than the Omega. It's also chronometer certified, which the steel versions are not, which uses a different movement, and it has quite a decent 56 hours of power reserve, so quite comparable to this Omega Aqua Terra. Now let's quickly move on to the bracelet. This bracelet from Omega is pretty decent. I like it. It's fully brushed, which I prefer over the newer versions, which has polished center links, or some of them are even fully polished. I prefer this more subdued look. Pretty basic. It's just a push button release. Solid, but nothing special. The Christopher Watt's bracelet is pretty nice. You can see it tapers, which the Omega doesn't. So I feel that this bracelet is better. It's chamfered on the sides, on both sides, and as well as this edge. So that gives it a level of refinement which is a step up from the Omega, in my opinion. Yeah, so that is my comparison. Just to add on as well, I think Omega, it's not only Omega that has this problem of thickness. I have Grand Seiko here as well, 37mm, so quite comparable watch. You can see that, yeah, it's also 13 plus millimeters, and you compare it to this 9mm Christopher Watt. I feel that this one really feels more refined, and I think Grand Seiko and Omega should really work on their calibers to make it more refined. I love their watches, but they can definitely be slimmer. This is my King Seiko semi shoe. Is around 13mm versus 9mm. Finally, this is my Longines. It's a great everyday watch as well. They actually use it uses a similar base caliber and has 100 of water resistance, but for some reason it is slightly thicker. I think this one is about 12 millimeters, so slightly thinner. I think part of the reason for the thickness from the Longines is that this dome crystal makes it higher than it has to be. Maybe Longines should have like try to lower the case a little bit to keep it slim, but overall this is really nice as well. But yeah, I hope this gives you a good perspective of what makes the 12 a really special watch. I think besides its dial and everything that everyone can see, I think that the thickness is something that is really noticeable on the wrist. So I hope this helps you. Thank you, and consider liking, subscribing, and following my channel.